The icy wind cuts through my jacket as I crouch behind a cluster of barren pine trees, my breath misting in the air. My hands tremble, half from the cold and half from the adrenaline coursing through my veins. My tools, relics from years in construction, are now my accomplices in this hunt for truth. It's insane, but desperation often is. My marriage was once a fortress of trust, but now all that's left is this raw, gut-wrenching need for answers. 2 weeks ago, I never imagined I'd be here, lurking in the shadows, driven by suspicion. But 2 weeks ago, I still believed my wife, Lila, genuinely wanted to fix what was broken between us. It all shifted the moment we arrived at the new Sandridge Cove Resort, a lavish retreat where our supposed romantic escape twisted into something far darker. "James, look at this," Lila had said with a bright smile, holding up a glossy brochure. Her excitement radiated as she talked about the invitation shed received through her work as a PR executive. "It's a pre-opening weekend. We get to experience everything the resort has to offer before they open to the public," she explained. "Completely free. Just one of the perks of working with a top marketing agency." I studied her, trying to catch the joy that used to light up her face when she spoke about our future. But things had changed. 8 years of marriage had been tested by financial struggles, particularly when my construction business nearly went under during the recession. We sold our dream home, downsized to a cramped rental, and fought to keep our heads above water. Through it all, Lila's career had saved us. Her success came at the price of long hours and, it seemed, emotional distance. I shoved my doubts aside and agreed to the weekend. Maybe, I thought, this getaway would bring us back together. A chance to feel close again. Little did I know that Sandridge Cove would be the setting for an unraveling. A place where I'd discover the dark reality beneath Lila's polished exterior. Our first night, I couldn't help but admire the resort's magnificence. Oceanfront bungalows dotted the pristine shore, and a towering hotel promised panoramic views of paradise. Lila had arranged for us to stay in a stunning ocean view room, and as we sipped mojitos on our balcony, I tried to believe this could work. We could rekindle what we'd lost. But when I reached over to run my fingers through her hair, she pulled away, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Dinner's at 8, she murmured, retreating into the room and closing the door behind her. And here I am now, standing on the edge of everything crumbling, trying to piece together the reason for her change. Every moment of her detachment fuels my determination. Whatever Lila is hiding, I'm going to find out. With one last deep breath, I step out from my hiding place, ready to reveal the truth. I ease open the door to our room, feeling the rush of warmth hit my face and briefly sting my frozen cheeks. Lila is gone, probably getting ready in one of the resort's luxurious spas. The suite is pristine, almost too perfect, like a polished lie. My mind races with fragments of half-finished thoughts, the kind that cling like cold sweat. I toss my gear onto the armchair and pace the plush carpet, feeling the weight of uncertainty with every step. As I cross the room, my eyes catch the faint shimmer of a necklace draped over the vanity. It's the delicate gold chain I gave Lila for our 5th anniversary, a small token she used to treasure. These days, it seems more like a forgotten relic. I run my hand over the surface of the vanity, my fingers stopping at a crumpled napkin. Curiosity pulls at me, and I flatten it out, only to see an address scrawled in Lila's handwriting. My heart pounds. It's not from any part of the resort I recognize. An address, but where? My gut churns with the implications. A sudden knock at the door snaps me out of my thoughts. My heart leaps, and for a second, I wonder if it's Lila. But when I swing the door open, it's just a resort staff member, all smiles. "Mr. Carter?" the young man asks. I nod, forcing calmness into my expression. "Your wife called down and asked us to let you know she'll be at the Driftwood Lounge if you'd like to join her before dinner." The Driftwood Lounge. My wife. There's an almost bitter taste to the idea that I'm learning about Lila's whereabouts through a third party. I thank the staff member, closing the door and leaning against it for a moment. Driftwood Lounge sounds harmless enough, but why do I feel this nagging sense of unease? I decide to make my way there, leaving behind the mystery of the address scribbled on the napkin. The hallways are draped in an upscale tranquility, an odd juxtaposition to the storm raging inside me. As I approach the entrance to the lounge, the sounds of clinking glasses and smooth jazz flow toward me. A dimly lit atmosphere, perfect for secrets, greets me when I step inside. I spot her almost immediately. Lila is seated at a table near the back, laughing at something a man across from her has just said. The man is striking, with that kind of confident charm that makes people lean in. My stomach knots at the sight. They're sitting close, too close, with an intimacy that doesn't belong to strangers or even acquaintances. I start toward them, my body moving before I have a chance to think through my actions. Lila hasn't seen me yet, but the man has. His smile tightens for a fraction of a second before he smooths his expression into one of practiced ease. He glances at Lila, then back at me, something knowing and smug lurking in his gaze. James? Lila's voice breaks through, her eyes widening as she finally notices me. There's a flash of something there. Surprise, maybe guilt, but she quickly masks it. Oh, I didn't expect you here so soon. Yeah, I manage, keeping my voice steady. Decided I shouldn't miss out on the fun. The man stands, extending his hand toward me. Eli Warren. He introduces himself, his handshake firm but uncomfortably long. Lila's colleague. We were just talking shop. Talking shop. Right. The tension between us is palpable, but Lila jumps in to fill the silence. Eli's helping coordinate some of the PR for the resort's opening, she explains, her tone bright but brittle. We've been working together a lot lately. I nod, forcing a smile I don't feel. A lot, huh? Lila's face colors, and for a moment, she looks like she's about to defend herself. But Eli beats her to it, his smile too casual. You know how it is in this business. Late nights, high-pressure projects. Glad to finally get a break out here. Right? I reply, the word feeling heavy in my mouth. My hands clench at my sides as I study them, looking for any sign that would confirm or deny the mess my mind is making. It's Lila's turn to shift uncomfortably, and it's all I can do not to demand answers right then and there. I need a plan, I tell myself, a way to get the truth. I sit at the table, forcing myself to breathe evenly as I watch Lila and Eli. The tension between us is so thick that I'm sure anyone passing by can sense it. Lila's eyes dart to mine, then back to Eli, and I can tell she's struggling to maintain her composure. But she's always been good at that, hasn't she? Presenting the perfect face to the world. James, why don't you join us? Lila says, her voice a little too bright, too rehearsed. She gestures to the empty seat next to her, and I see the faint tremor in her hand. It's nice to be able to share some of this with you. I take the offered seat, but the closeness does little to ease the tension. Instead, I feel like a coiled spring, ready to snap at any moment. Eli picks up the conversation, effortlessly charming as he talks about the resort's upcoming events. But I'm barely listening, my mind spinning as I observe every subtle movement, every lingering look that passes between them. So, James, Eli says suddenly, drawing me back into the conversation. His eyes are sharp, dissecting me. Lila's mentioned you're in construction. I imagine it's quite the demanding job. I nod slowly, my jaw tightening. It is. Long hours. A lot of responsibility. My words are pointed, meant to remind him, and maybe even Lila, that I've had to work hard to keep us afloat. But Eli only nods, unbothered, and takes a sip of his drink. We can all relate to that, he says smoothly, giving Lila a conspiratorial smile. The late nights, the pressure. It bonds people in unexpected ways. I can't help but catch the double meaning in his words, and my blood runs hot. Lila's face pales for a moment, but she forces a laugh, the sound brittle. Eli, she says, her voice strained but steady, James didn't come here to listen to us talk about work. This weekend is supposed to be about unwinding, right? I swallow the anger simmering in my chest and offer a tense smile. Right. We came here to reconnect. Eli's gaze flicks between us, a small, knowing smirk tugging at his lips. Of course, he says, standing up and draining the last of his whiskey. Well, I'll leave you two to it then. He claps a hand on my shoulder, leaning in. It was a pleasure, James. I'm sure we'll see more of each other over the weekend. I watch him walk away, my fists clenching so tightly that my knuckles turn white. Lila turns to me, and for the first time in weeks, I see vulnerability in her eyes. I didn't know you'd be here so soon, she says quietly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. I wasn't expecting you. I lean forward, my voice low. Who is he really, Lila? And don't give me that colleague crap. She flinches, looking away. He is a colleague, she insists, but there's a note of desperation in her voice. We've been working together a lot lately, and yes, maybe we've become close, but it's not what you think. Then tell me what it is, I demand, my voice barely above a whisper. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks pretty damn clear. Her eyes flash with something. Guilt, regret, or maybe fear. She opens her mouth to speak, but then shuts it, as if she can't find the right words. The silence stretches between us, an invisible chasm filled with doubts and unanswered questions. I need some air, she says finally, standing up and clutching her purse like a lifeline. She hurries out of the lounge, leaving me sitting there, the ghost of her perfume lingering in the air. I sit there for a moment, my thoughts racing. Eli's smug grin, the way Lila's voice had cracked. None of it adds up, or maybe it does, and I just don't want to accept the reality staring me in the face. Either way, I know I can't sit here feeling powerless. I get up and head back to our room, determined to find something that will confirm my suspicions once and for all. This time, I won't let her hide behind half-truths and avoidance. I'm done with playing nice. My mind races as I storm back to our suite. Each step I take seems to pound in time with my heartbeat, echoing in my ears like the thunder of war drums. The image of Lila and Eli sharing those intimate smiles is burned into my memory, a brand searing the trust one once had for her. The door to our room creaks open as I push it forcefully, and I close it behind me, leaning against the cool wood to steady myself. Anger, confusion, and betrayal swirl in my chest, but I try to focus. If Lila's hiding something, I'm going to find it. I start with the bathroom, digging through the compartments of her makeup bag, my hands moving swiftly but carefully. Perfume bottles and tubes of lipstick clink together as I search for anything that feels out of place, but nothing catches my attention. Frustrated, I move on to the closet, rifling through her neatly hung dresses and the luggage we'd packed for our so-called romantic getaway. Finally, I notice something strange. One of Lila's overnight bags has a side pocket partially unzipped, and there's a slight bulge beneath the fabric. My heart pounds as I pull it open, revealing a thin stack of printed documents folded in half. I grab them, my hands shaking as I unfold the papers. The first thing I see is a printed map of the resort. It's marked up in pen, with circles drawn around various locations, including the Driftwood Lounge and a private beach area. I flip to the next page, a handwritten schedule, detailing events I hadn't known about, like a late-night yacht party scheduled for tomorrow. My gut twists as I realize the name at the top of the page. Eli Warren. I can't breathe for a second. Lila was planning things with Eli? Events I wasn't even supposed to know about? I grip the papers tighter, anger bubbling to the surface. But then, there's more. A reservation confirmation for a private beachside bungalow, booked under Lila's name for tomorrow evening. My stomach churns. My mind spins with questions and wild suspicions, but one stands out above the rest. What exactly does she plan to do there, and with whom? A creak from behind me snaps me out of my spiraling thoughts. I whirl around to see Lila standing in the doorway, her eyes wide and her lips parted. She looks between the documents in my hands and my face, and I can see the panic blooming in her expression. "What are you doing?" she demands, her voice high and brittle. I hold up the evidence, my hands trembling with barely controlled fury. "I should be asking you that, Lila. What the hell is all this?" Her face pales, and for a moment, she looks genuinely terrified. But then her mouth sets in a hard line, and she squares her shoulders. "You went through my things?" she accuses, her voice hardening. "That's a violation of my privacy, James. Don't turn this around on me." I snap, stepping closer. "You've been acting strange this whole trip. I find you having cozy conversations with Eli, and now I find these." I wave the documents in her face. "Tell me what's really going on." Right. Now. She crosses her arms, her eyes blazing. It's not what you think, she insists, but her voice shakes. Eli and I are just friends. We've been collaborating closely for work and friends? I interrupt, my voice dripping with disbelief. Friends don't book private bungalows together or circle places on a map for late-night yacht parties. This is more than work, and you know it. Tears spring to her eyes, and she bites her lip, her mask of composure slipping. James, please, she whispers. It's complicated. Complicated? I echo, a bitter laugh escaping me. Try me. The silence that follows is deafening. Lila's eyes well up with unshed tears, and I can see the turmoil behind her gaze. But instead of breaking, she turns on her heel, grabbing her purse and storming out of the room, slamming the door behind her. I stand there, breathing hard, feeling more lost than ever. The documents in my hand feel heavier than a simple stack of paper. They're the weight of a crumbling marriage, of trust that's hanging on by a thread. But I'm not done. If Lila wants to keep running from the truth, then I'll find it myself. I'm left standing in the middle of the suite, heart pounding as the door rattles in its frame from Lila's dramatic exit. The silence that follows feels oppressive, like the aftermath of a thunderstorm. I drop the documents onto the nearest table, running my hands over my face. A part of me wants to chase her down, force her to tell me everything, but I know it would just end in more shouting and evasion. Instead, I take a moment to breathe, forcing myself to calm down. My mind is a tangled mess of anger, hurt, and suspicion, but I need to think clearly. I need to stay sharp if I want to find out what's really going on. I sit down and stare at the evidence scattered across the table. The map of the resort with its neatly marked circles, the handwritten schedule, the reservation for the beachside bungalow. Each piece of paper feels like a puzzle piece, but I don't have the full picture yet. One thing stands out, the yacht party. According to the schedule, it's happening tomorrow night at the resort's private marina. If Lila and Eli plan to meet there, maybe I can get ahead of them, gather more information, or even confront them. But I can't go in blind. I need a plan. My phone buzzes, pulling me from my thoughts. I grab it off the table, and my stomach sinks when I see the name on the screen. It's Jake, my oldest friend and one of the few people who's been there for me through every high and low. He's the one who helped me rebuild my construction business when I thought it was over. If anyone knows how to keep me grounded, it's him. Hey, man, I answer, trying to keep my voice steady. James, Jake says, his voice tinged with concern. You sound off. Everything okay? I swallow hard, debating whether to tell him the truth. But I need someone to talk to, someone who won't sugarcoat things. I don't know, Jake. Things are a mess. Lila, she's been acting strange, and I think something's going on between her and this guy from work. There's a long pause, and I can almost hear Jake's frown over the line. You're serious? He finally asks. What makes you think that? I quickly explain everything. The weekend getaway, the suspicious behavior, the documents I found. By the time I finish, I feel even more wound up, but Jake stays quiet, processing everything. Damn, he mutters. That doesn't sound good. But listen, before you do anything drastic, make sure you have solid evidence. I know you're hurting, but you don't want to jump to conclusions. His words hit home, but they don't make me feel any less conflicted. I hear you, I say, running a hand through my hair. But if I'm right, if she's really doing this to us, Jake sighs, then you'll handle it. You're stronger than you think, James. But remember, be smart. Don't let your emotions make the decisions for you. I thank him, feeling a little steadier, even though the knot of tension in my chest refuses to loosen. After hanging up, I stare at the papers one last time, my jaw clenched. Jake's right. I need proof. Concrete, undeniable proof. And I'm going to get it, no matter what. The next day passes in a haze of calculated patience. I avoid Lila as best as I can, keeping my distance while pretending everything is fine. She returns to the room in the late afternoon, acting as if our argument never happened. But her eyes are red, and I wonder if she's been crying, or if she's just exhausted from whatever game she's playing. I don't press her for answers, instead saving my energy for tonight. As evening falls, I dress in dark, inconspicuous clothing, preparing to shadow my own wife. The idea makes my stomach turn, but I need to know. I check the time, 8:30 p.m. The yacht party starts soon, and if Lila's going to meet Eli, she'll have to leave any minute. Sure enough, I hear her moving around the room. I stand by the window, hidden behind the curtains, and watch as she steps outside. She's dressed to kill, her black cocktail dress hugging her curves in a way that used to drive me wild. But now, it just fills me with dread. Once she's out of sight, I slip out the door and follow, careful to keep my distance. I'm not the jealous, paranoid type. At least, I didn't think I was. But now, every step feels like a march toward betrayal, and I don't know what I'll find at the end. The truth is waiting, and I'm ready to face it. I trail Lila through the winding paths of the resort, keeping to the shadows cast by palm trees and carefully placed lighting. The sound of the ocean crashing against the shore serves as a mocking backdrop, the kind of sound that should be soothing but instead only amplifies the tension curling through my gut. Lila moves with purpose, her heels clicking rhythmically on the stone path. She has no idea I'm following her, and that makes me feel even more like an intruder in my own marriage. I almost stop, feeling a pang of guilt, but then I remind myself that trust was shattered the moment she started sneaking around. I need to see this through, no matter how much it hurts. Ahead, the path opens up to the resort's private marina. The dock glows with soft golden lights, reflecting off the polished wood and casting a halo over the sleek yachts bobbing gently in the water. Guests dressed in cocktail attire laugh and clink glasses, a picture of carefree luxury. But none of them look like they're hiding the kind of secrets that make your chest ache with betrayal. Lila steps onto the main dock, her pace slowing as she searches the crowd. I duck behind a large potted palm, the leaves rustling slightly, and watch. It doesn't take long before Eli appears, cutting through the crowd with that confident stride that I've grown to hate. He's wearing a fitted navy suit, a casual grin spreading across his face as he approaches my wife. "Lila," he says, his voice low and smooth, the kind of voice that probably melts barriers and wins clients over. She turns to him, her lips curving into a smile that looks genuine, and it takes every ounce of restraint I have not to charge out there and demand answers. Instead, I grit my teeth and focus on their conversation. They're too far away for me to hear clearly, but their body language says enough. Eli reaches out, and Lila laughs as she playfully swats his hand away. The moment feels intimate, too intimate, and my vision blurs with anger. I need to get closer. Taking a breath, I inch along the perimeter of the dock, my footsteps light and calculated. I weave between groups of guests, pretending to adjust my jacket or check my phone whenever someone looks in my direction. Finally, I stop near the edge of a large yacht, only a few feet from where Lila and Eli stand. "All set?" I catch Eli saying, his voice carrying over the laughter and clinking glasses. "Yeah," Lila replies, her tone softer, almost vulnerable. "I think this weekend will be memorable, one way or another." "Memorable?" Eli echoes with a chuckle. "I'll drink to that." He raises a glass he's been holding, and they share a toast, their eyes locking in a way that makes my skin crawl. The tension between them is undeniable, and for a second, I feel like I've been punched in the gut. But I force myself to focus, to listen for more. I need proof, not just a gut feeling. Eli leans closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "You're sure he doesn't suspect anything?" Lila bites her lower lip, her expression flickering with something I can't quite read. "I don't know," she admits, her voice wavering. "James isn't stupid, Eli. He's been acting differently. I think he knows something's off." My heart stops, then pounds so hard I'm sure they can hear it. She knows I'm suspicious. But what does she mean, something's off? Is it more than just this emotional affair? Or is there something even deeper, more dangerous lurking beneath the surface? Eli reaches for her hand, and she lets him take it, her fingers twining with his. The sight makes bile rise in my throat, but I stay put, my body rigid with a mixture of heartbreak and anger. "If he does know," Eli says, his voice smooth as ever, "we'll deal with it. Together." Together. The word echoes in my head, and I realize just how far this has all spiraled out of control. Whatever game they're playing, it's more than just a simple betrayal. There's a plan here, something I'm not seeing yet, and it terrifies me. Before I can process it any further, Lila turns her head, and for a split second, her eyes lock with mine. I freeze, my breath catching. Did she see me? She blinks, her expression clouded with confusion, and I duck behind the nearest yacht, my heart slamming in my chest. I need to get out of here, fast, before I give myself away. My pulse is thundering in my ears as I crouch behind the yacht, desperately hoping that Lila didn't see me. I'm tense, every muscle coiled and ready to react. The cold realization that I might have been spotted sends a fresh wave of dread crashing through me. If they know I'm onto them, whatever plans they have could escalate or shift in an unpredictable, dangerous way. I take a steadying breath, then dare to peek around the side of the yacht. Lila is still standing with Eli, her gaze searching the crowd, a flicker of uncertainty clouding her features. Eli says something to her, and she forces a smile, nodding in response, but I can tell she's on edge now. I've pushed too close to the truth, and she can feel it. Ducking back into the shadows, I decide it's time to retreat. I can't afford to confront them, not yet, not without knowing exactly what they're planning. I slip quietly along the edge of the marina, blending into the groups of resort guests and pretending to be just another reveler enjoying the night. Once I'm clear of the docks, I make my way up a side path that leads toward the beach, the cool breeze off the ocean doing little to soothe my burning anger. My mind is spinning with possibilities. What does Eli mean by deal with it together? And what the hell does Lila know that she's not telling me? It's not just an affair anymore. It feels like a conspiracy. I'm missing something, a key piece of the puzzle that ties this mess together. I slip back into the resort's main building, ducking into a quiet hallway near the elevators to gather my thoughts. I lean against the wall, staring at the marble tiles beneath my feet, as if they hold the answers. It's then that I hear familiar laughter, Lila's laughter, drifting through the air. I look up and see her and Eli entering the elevator at the far end of the hallway, and a sickening feeling twists in my gut. I can't let them leave together without knowing where they're going. Before I can talk myself out of it, I move quickly, stepping into the next elevator and hitting the button to the floor they're headed to. My elevator lurches upward, and I feel the tension tighten in my chest with every passing second. When the doors slide open, I step out cautiously, scanning the hallway. There they are, standing in front of a suite door at the very end of the corridor. Eli pulls out a key card, and the door opens. Lila hesitates for a moment, her hand lingering on the doorframe as if she's unsure. But then she steps inside, and the door clicks shut behind them. I'm left standing there, a mix of fury and devastation crashing over me. I know I should turn around, walk away, and regroup, but something keeps me frozen in place. This is more than betrayal. It's a calculated move, and whatever they're planning, I need to know now. I clench my fists, forcing myself to breathe. My options run through my mind, each one more desperate than the last. Should I confront them? Break down the door and demand answers? No. Jake's words echo in my mind. Be smart. I can't let my emotions control me, not when I'm this close to the truth. Instead, I back away quietly, moving to a secluded corner of the hallway. I take out my phone, trying to think of who I can call or what I can do next. But then a door opens down the hall, and I nearly jump out of my skin. It's not Lila and Eli, but an older couple stepping out of their room, laughing softly and holding hands. The sight of their simple happiness is like a knife to the chest. I turn my back to them, fighting the urge to crumble. This whole situation is a nightmare, and I can't wake up from it. But if I'm going to get to the bottom of this, I need a plan, and I need to be one step ahead of whatever Lila and Eli have in store. I retreat from the hallway, my mind racing, the cold realization of how deep this betrayal might run sinking in. Lila and Eli aren't just having a secret rendezvous. There's a sinister edge to all of this, something more than just an affair. My fingers drum nervously against my phone as I pace in a small alcove off the main hallway, trying to decide my next move. I know I can't let them know I'm onto them yet. I need to be smart, methodical, and gather evidence, not just for my own sanity, but in case things get worse. If there's something bigger at play here, I need to be prepared. My phone buzzes in my hand, and I nearly drop it in my nervous state. It's a message from Jake. Hey, checking in. You doing okay? I type back quickly, not even close. You were right. It's bad. Really bad. But I'm working on getting proof. I hesitate, my thumb hovering over the send button before I add. I'll call you if I need backup. Hitting send, I pocket the phone and glance back toward the elevator. I have no idea how long Lila and Eli will be in that suite, but I can't afford to stand here and wait. Instead, I need to regroup and think strategically. Heading back to our own suite, I try to calm the frantic beat of my heart. The door to our room clicks open, and the stillness inside feels suffocating. I close it behind me, feeling the weight of our shared history pressing down on my chest. Every picture on the wall, every piece of luggage packed with plans for this so-called romantic weekend, mocks me. The happy life I thought we were working on fixing now seems like a cruel joke. I sit heavily on the edge of the bed, my hands buried in my hair, and try to make sense of what I've witnessed. Lila's hesitation outside the suite door keeps replaying in my mind, the flicker of doubt I saw on her face. Maybe, just maybe, she's not entirely lost to whatever scheme Eli has pulled her into. But even if she's conflicted, that doesn't erase the fact that she's been lying to me. The knot of betrayal tightens, and I have to push down the anger threatening to overwhelm me. I need to stay clear-headed. I need to focus on getting the full picture before making any moves. I pull out the documents I found earlier, spreading them across the bed. The marked map, the reservation for the private bungalow, the handwritten schedule. It's all connected somehow, but I can't see the entire web. The yacht party tomorrow feels like the key to unlocking this whole mess, but I have to survive the night first. The door to the suite suddenly opens, and I jump up, my heart leaping into my throat. Lila walks in, her expression unreadable, and I can't help but wonder how much she knows. Did she notice me at the marina? Is she aware that I followed her? She stops in the entryway, her eyes narrowing slightly as she takes in the scene. Me, standing tense and defensive, and the damning documents spread across the bed. A shadow of something passes over her face, but she quickly masks it, slipping back into her usual practiced calm. What are you doing? She asks, her voice eerily steady. Waiting for you, I say, my own voice rough with barely restrained emotion. We need to talk. Lila's shoulders tense, but she doesn't move. Instead, she closes the door behind her with a soft click, locking us both in. About what? She asks, her tone laced with forced casualness. I gesture to the papers. About this. About Eli. About whatever the hell is really going on here. For a moment, there's a crack in her armor. Her eyes glisten with something that might be fear, or maybe regret. But she quickly shakes her head, moving closer. You don't understand, she says, her voice dropping to a whisper. It's not what you think. Then tell me, I demand, stepping forward, my fists clenched. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been lying to me for a long time, Lila. Her mouth opens, but no words come out. She looks trapped, like a deer caught in headlights, and I can see the war playing out inside her. For the first time, I see how scared she is, and it only makes me more determined to get the truth. She takes a shaky breath. James, you have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. The way she says it, with that edge of genuine fear, sends a chill down my spine. I step back, my anger mixing with confusion. What do you mean? I ask, but before she can answer, there's a loud knock at the door, and we both jump. Lila's eyes widen in panic. Don't answer that, she whispers, grabbing my arm. Please. But I can't ignore it. Something tells me that whoever's on the other side is connected to whatever dark secret Lila's hiding. The knock echoes through the suite, and Lila's grip on my arm tightens. Her face has drained of color, and for a split second, I see raw, unfiltered fear in her eyes. My mind races. Whoever is on the other side of that door isn't just a nuisance. They're part of something dangerous. I pull my arm free from Lila's grasp, trying to keep my voice steady. I have to answer it, I whisper. I need to know what's going on. Her eyes well up, and she shakes her head, her voice cracking. James, please. Trust me on this. You don't want to open that door. The desperation in her voice makes me hesitate, but the mystery pounding at the edge of this moment demands an answer. Ignoring the frantic pounding of my heart, I take a cautious step toward the door. Another knock reverberates, harder this time, more insistent. I reach for the handle, my fingers hovering over the cold metal. Lila takes a step back, her body taut with tension. I meet her eyes one last time, silently begging for some kind of truth, some kind of explanation. But she stays silent, her lips pressed together in a thin line. I twist the handle and swing the door open. Standing in the hallway is Eli. His expression is unreadable, a mask of calm that feels wrong given the situation. He's not dressed in his earlier suit, but in a more casual outfit, jeans, a leather jacket, and a black shirt, like he's dressed for more than just a night out. The shift in his appearance only amplifies the sense of threat radiating from him. "James," Eli says, his voice dripping with a false warmth that sets my teeth on edge. "We need to have a word." I stiffen, instinctively blocking his view of Lila. "What are you doing here?" I demand, barely holding back the anger bubbling to the surface. Eli's eyes flicker to Lila, who stands frozen behind me. "There are things you don't understand," he says, stepping forward, "and your involvement is complicating matters." I bristle, my fist clenching. "My involvement?" I snap. "You're the one who's been sneaking around with my wife, so don't talk to me about complicating things." Eli's face remains impassive, but there's a hint of a smirk, a subtle acknowledgement of my anger. "It's not as simple as you think, James," he replies calmly. "This isn't just about you, me, or even Lila." Before I can process his cryptic words, he takes another step forward, and I instinctively push him back. "Stay where you are," I warn, my voice low and threatening. "I'm done playing games." Eli holds his hands up in a mock gesture of surrender, but his eyes are cold, calculating. "Fine," he says, "but if you don't let us explain, you'll regret it." "Us?" I echo, confusion flaring. "What the hell does that mean?" Lila's voice cuts through the tension, small and wavering. "James, let him talk." Her words are like a knife in my gut, a betrayal wrapped in a plea. She steps forward, her shoulders hunched, and for the first time, I see just how deep this situation runs. Eli looks at her, then back at me, his expression hardening. "It's time you learn the truth," he says, "because if we don't work together, we're all in danger." Danger. The word sends a chill down my spine. I stare between the two of them, my mind scrambling to catch up. This is more than infidelity, more than a simple affair. It's something bigger, something twisted that I've stumbled into without even realizing it. "What danger?" I ask, my voice cracking slightly despite my best effort to sound strong. "What the hell is going on?" Eli glances around the hallway, as if checking for eavesdroppers, then steps back. "Not here," he says. "We need to go somewhere private." I want to refuse, to slam the door in his face and walk away from all of this. But the fear in Lila's eyes is real, and Eli's composure is too calculated to be a simple bluff. Whatever this is, it's serious. And like it or not, I need to know the truth. I turn to Lila, my voice tight. "Fine, but I swear, if you two don't start telling me everything, I'm done." Lila nods, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I promise," she whispers. "You deserve to know everything." With one last, deep breath, I step out into the hallway, prepared to finally confront whatever nightmare I've been pulled into. The hallway feels colder than before, a stark contrast to the suffocating tension surrounding us. I follow Eli as he leads the way, his strides confident yet wary, like he's done this before. Lila walks beside me, her silence heavy with things unsaid. I can't even bring myself to look at her, not when every step away from our suite feels like a step further from the life we once shared. Eli brings us to a small, private conference room tucked away in a corner of the resort. He checks the room, his eyes flickering to the corners and the windows as though he expects someone, or something, to be watching. Finally, he closes the door behind us, locking it with a quiet click. The sound sends a shiver up my spine. "All right," I say, crossing my arms over my chest. Enough with the theatrics. Start talking. Eli takes a deep breath, leaning against the edge of the table, and for the first time, he looks genuinely tired. This isn't just about an affair, he begins, his voice flat but serious. It's about a job that went wrong. Very wrong. I narrow my eyes, suspicion thick in my mind. What kind of job? He exchanges a look with Lila, who's gone pale, her hands trembling as she clasps them in front of her. She meets my gaze, her eyes pleading. James, she says softly, Eli isn't just a PR consultant. He's a private contractor, someone my agency brought in for sensitive projects. I scoff, the words almost laughable if they weren't delivered with such grim seriousness. Sensitive projects? I echo. You expect me to believe this is about business? Eli's jaw tightens. Your wife's agency handles more than just PR, he says, his voice edged with frustration. They have clients who deal in high-stakes negotiations, information exchanges, things that require people like me. But the last job we worked on, involving this resort's investors, went sideways. Some very powerful people lost a lot of money. Lila interjects, her voice shaking. And they blamed us. They thought we sabotaged the deal. She looks at me, her eyes brimming with tears. James, I didn't know how dangerous it was until it was too late. I stagger back a step, the room spinning. This isn't just a story about infidelity. This is a nightmare. So you're telling me that you're involved with some kind of corporate espionage? I ask, disbelief making my voice rise. That people are after you. Us, because of a business deal? Eli nods, his expression grim. It's more than that. Whoever is behind this believes you might be a liability now. That's why we've had to be careful, to protect everyone involved. A fresh wave of dread washes over me, and I sink into a chair, trying to wrap my head around this new reality. All this time, I'd thought Lila was cheating on me, sneaking around for some romantic tryst, but instead, she's caught up in a web of high-stakes deception that's put our lives in jeopardy. So all those late nights, I say slowly, turning to Lila, all the times you acted distant, that was because you were afraid? Tears spill down her cheeks, and she nods, her voice breaking. I couldn't tell you, James. I wanted to keep you safe, but then everything got so complicated. I gripped the edge of the table, trying to stay grounded. And Eli? I ask, my anger flaring again. What about your relationship with him? Eli raises his hands defensively. Our connection is professional, but intense situations can create complicated dynamics, he admits, and there's a flicker of guilt in his eyes. But I swear, my first priority has always been Lila's safety. The room falls silent, each of us processing the chaos we're trapped in. My anger hasn't disappeared, but now it's tangled with fear and confusion. How did my life spiral so completely out of control? So what now? I ask, my voice hoarse. What are we supposed to do? Eli's eyes harden. We figure out who's targeting us and why, he says. Because if we don't, they'll come for all of us. I sit there, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. Trust feels like a foreign concept, and yet, the stakes are too high to let my personal feelings cloud my judgment. If Lila's life is truly in danger, then I have no choice but to play along, for now. Fine, I finally say, the weight of this nightmare pressing on my chest. But if you're lying to me about anything else, I'm done. Got it? Lila swallows, nodding through her tears, and Eli's expression is as serious as ever. Understood, he says. The storm of betrayal, fear, and confusion rages inside me, but one thing is clear. We're in deep, and the only way out is to face whatever threat has pulled us into this twisted game. Eli stands there, jaw clenched, as he tries to lay out a plan, but I'm barely hearing him. My world has become a cacophony of distrust, and I'm finding it hard to breathe. Lila's betrayal still feels fresh, even with this new explanation. Sure, the affair isn't what I thought, but her secrecy, her lies, they've left scars. First, Eli says, snapping me back to attention, we need to figure out if they've compromised the resort. It's likely we're being watched. We have to assume every room, every public space, might have eyes and ears. Lila wipes her tears, regaining some composure. Do you think they're already here? She asks, her voice breaking slightly. The fear in her eyes is real, but I can't ignore the pain that comes from realizing how far she'd gone to hide this from me. Eli nods grimly. If they suspect James knows anything, they'll be watching him too, he says, glancing at me. Which means you're not safe either. I let out a bitter laugh. Safe? I echo. I haven't felt safe since the moment this vacation started. And now you're telling me I'm part of some spy thriller without even signing up for it. Eli crosses his arms. I get it. You're angry. But we don't have time for that. We need to act. I clench my fists, trying to rein in the fury. He's right, as much as I hate to admit it. So what's the plan? I bite out, staring him down. We split up, Eli replies. We need to cover more ground and find out if anyone suspicious has checked in recently or if there have been any strange activities reported to the staff. James, you can use your cover as Lila's husband. Pretend you're just a concerned spouse who noticed something off. I want to object, to tell him to handle it all himself, but if I don't play along, I might be risking more than just my pride. Reluctantly, I nod. And you? I ask, narrowing my eyes at him. I'll look into our digital security, Eli says. I'll see if I can trace any surveillance activity or hack attempts. We need to know if they've breached any of our communication channels. What about me? Lila asks, her voice shaky but determined. She looks between us, and I can see the exhaustion in her eyes, the guilt etched into her expression. I don't feel sorry for her, at least, not yet, but I can't deny the strain she's under. You stay out of sight, Eli says. Your presence only makes things riskier for both of you. If they're watching, they'll want to see you vulnerable and unaware. It'll give us the edge we need. Lila starts to argue, but I cut her off. No, I say firmly. You've done enough. Stay hidden and let us handle this. The room goes quiet, the tension between us palpable. Lila flinches, as if my words are a physical blow, but she nods, swallowing her protest. Fine, she whispers. But be careful. Without another word, I turn on my heel and head for the door. I can't stay in that room any longer, not when the betrayal still burns, mixing with the fear of this new threat. Eli follows me into the hallway, and we exchange a tense glance. You really love her, don't you? He asks, surprising me with the question. I stiffen, caught off guard. I thought I did, I say, my voice low. But right now, I don't even know who she is. Eli's expression softens for a moment, and it's the first sign that maybe he's not as cold as he seems. People make mistakes, he says, but they also fight like hell to fix them when it matters. I don't reply. Instead, I push past him, determined to focus on the task at hand. If I'm going to protect myself, and maybe, in some twisted way, Lila too, I need to stay sharp. The lobby is bustling with guests, but I keep my head down, pretending to be just another vacationer looking for answers. My heart hammers as I approach the front desk, my mind rehearsing my cover story. I don't know how deep this danger runs, but I'm ready to find out. I approach the front desk, forcing myself to adopt the demeanor of a husband looking for information, not a man caught in a tangled web of lies and danger. The concierge, a polished young woman with a practiced smile, greets me warmly. Her name tag reads Tiffany, and she looks like the kind of person who's used to solving minor guest inconveniences, not fielding questions about potential espionage. Hi there, she says, her smile bright and friendly. How can I assist you this evening? I clear my throat, trying to sound casual. Actually, I'm a bit concerned, I start, leaning slightly closer. My wife and I have noticed some strange things happening around the resort. Guests acting suspicious, maybe some people who don't seem to be on vacation, if you catch my drift. Tiffany's smile falters for a second, but she quickly recovers, her professionalism kicking in. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, she says, her brow furrowing. What sort of behavior have you noticed? I hesitate, knowing I need to tread carefully. It's hard to explain, I say, lowering my voice. But, for example, a few people have been lingering around places they shouldn't be, like the private marina and restricted areas. I just want to make sure my wife and I are safe, you know? Her eyes widen slightly, and she leans forward, her voice dropping to match my tone. We haven't received any official reports, she admits, but security has been on high alert since an incident last week. A break-in at the resort's administrative offices. Nothing was stolen, but whoever did it seemed to be searching for something. My pulse quickens. A break-in? That's more serious than I'd expected. Did they find out who it was? I ask, my curiosity piqued. She shakes her head. No suspects, she replies. But the security team has been keeping a closer eye on everything since. If you feel unsafe, I can have someone assigned to patrol near your suite. I force a smile. That won't be necessary, I say, trying to hide the unease bubbling inside me. Just wanted to make sure we weren't imagining things. She nods, still looking concerned. But I offer a wave and back away from the desk before she can ask more questions. My mind spins as I make my way toward the resort's common area. A break-in at the administrative offices. No suspects. The timing is too convenient to be a coincidence, and I have a feeling it's connected to whatever mess Lila and Eli are tangled up in. I duck into the bar, finding a secluded booth where I can think. The bartender eyes me for a moment, but doesn't approach, sensing I'm not in the mood for small talk. I take out my phone, opening a secure app one installed ages ago. One meant to encrypt messages and calls. It's time to update Jake. Hey, I type. Things are more complicated than I thought. Might be dealing with more than just betrayal. Possible break-in at the resort last week. I'll explain later, but I might need you on standby. I hit send and sit back, trying to process everything. If there's a break-in and heightened security, it means someone's after more than just information about Lila and Eli's failed job. It means the stakes are higher, and the danger is very real. I'm about to get up and leave when I catch sight of someone out of the corner of my eye. A man in a suit, lingering by the entrance of the bar. He's not looking at me, but there's something too deliberate about the way he's pretending to read the menu posted by the door. His posture, his alertness. He's no regular guest. My instincts scream at me. He's watching the bar, maybe even looking for me. I lower my head, hoping he hasn't noticed me yet. If Eli was right and there really are people after us, I might have just stumbled into their trap. I have to get out of here, and fast. I take a slow, calming breath, preparing to make my next move. I take a moment to steel my nerves, my mind racing with every possible exit strategy. The man by the entrance shifts, pretending to focus on his phone now, but I can feel his gaze sweeping the room every few seconds. I've been in enough high-pressure situations on construction sites to know when someone is hyper-aware of their surroundings. He's looking for someone, maybe even me. I slide out of the booth slowly, keeping my head down and trying to blend in with a group of guests who are laughing and making their way toward the lobby. The noise and commotion of the resort's bar make it easier to slip through unnoticed. I maneuver around tables, my heart pounding in my chest, and take a side exit that leads to one of the outdoor lounges near the pool area. The warm, humid night air hits me like a wave, but it does nothing to calm my nerves. I weave between cabanas, ducking low and moving quickly until I find a dark corner behind some tall, potted plants. Peering out from my hiding spot, I see the man in the suit exit the bar and look around, his eyes narrowing as he scans the area. He's definitely looking for someone specific, and that someone is probably me. I pull out my phone, my fingers fumbling as I text Eli. Someone's following me. Man in a suit, pretending to be a guest. Need a distraction or backup, now. It takes an agonizing minute, but Eli responds. Stay hidden. I'll handle it. I shove the phone back into my pocket, feeling exposed and vulnerable in the open air. Every second that passes feels like an eternity, and I keep expecting the man to round the corner and find me. My hand drifts to the pocket knife I always keep on me, an old habit from my construction days. I don't want to use it, but if I have to. Suddenly, there's a loud commotion coming from the direction of the pool. A couple of staff members rush past, shouting something about an electrical malfunction. The man in the suit hesitates, glancing toward the chaos, and for a moment, he seems torn between investigating the disturbance or continuing his search. I take the opportunity to move. I slip around the back of the pool area, using the distraction to make my way toward the resort's garden, a maze of pathways and flowering shrubs that can easily hide me. I keep moving, ducking low, and sticking to the shadows until I'm sure I've put enough distance between myself and my pursuer. Finally, I stop, catching my breath as I lean against a stone fountain in the middle of the garden. The sound of trickling water does little to soothe the fear still thrumming through my veins. My phone buzzes again, and I quickly check the message. "You good?" Eli asks. I type back, "For now." "What was the distraction?" He replies almost immediately. "Triggered a short circuit near the pool. Bought you time. Meet me at the staff service entrance near the east wing in 10. I let out a shaky breath, grateful that Eli managed to intervene. But my relief is short-lived. This whole situation is spiraling out of control, and the more I dig, the more dangerous it gets. Whoever is after us, they're not playing games. I leave the garden and make my way toward the east wing, keeping to the shadows and making sure I'm not being followed. As I approach the staff entrance, I see Eli standing there, his arms crossed and his expression hard. He nods when he spots me, and I feel a sliver of relief. But as I draw closer, I notice that Lila is with him. Her face is pale, her eyes wide with worry, and she looks like she's barely holding it together. "What happened?" she asks, her voice trembling. I ignore the pang of resentment that still simmers inside me. "I was followed," I say, keeping my voice low. "Eli's distraction worked, but it's clear they're closing in on us." Eli's jaw tightens. "We don't have much time," he says. "We need to figure out our next move before they do." Lila looks between us, her hands clenching into fists. "We're running out of options," she whispers. "We need to stop hiding and take control of the situation." I study her, trying to read the fear and determination in her eyes. For the first time, I see a glimpse of the woman I used to know, the one who never backed down from a fight. But trust doesn't come easily anymore, and I don't know if I can rely on her. "What do you suggest?" I ask, my voice guarded. Lila takes a deep breath, her eyes locking with mine. "We find out who's pulling the strings," she says, "and we end this once and for all." Eli and I exchange a wary glance, both of us silently weighing the implications of Lila's bold statement. There's an edge of desperation in her eyes, but also determination, a fire I haven't seen in a long time. Despite everything, despite the lies and betrayal, part of me wants to believe in her. Yet the stakes are too high to trust blindly. "And how exactly do you plan to do that?" I ask, my voice tinged with both skepticism and curiosity. Lila hesitates, her gaze shifting between us before she speaks. "We need leverage. Something that will force whoever is behind this to back off." Her voice shakes slightly, but she pushes on. "The information we have, the data from the failed job Eli and I were involved in, it might be our only bargaining chip." Eli frowns. "That data is what got us into this mess," he argues. "If they think we're using it against them, they won't hesitate to eliminate us." Lila bites her lip, frustration flickering across her face. "We can't keep running, Eli. We need to turn the tables." A bitter laugh escapes me. "So your plan is to take the thing that made us targets in the first place and use it as bait?" I shake my head, disbelief tightening my chest. "Sounds like a great way to get us all killed." Lila steps closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "It's a risk, I know, but we don't have any other options. We're cornered, James. They've already sent people after us, and it's only going to get worse." I hate how right she is. The fear of being hunted, of always looking over our shoulders, has become a suffocating reality. I glance at Eli, searching for any sign that he has a better idea, but he just stares back, the tension in his jaw evident. "All right," Eli finally says, his voice resigned. "But if we're going to do this, we need to be smart about it. We can't just hand over the data without a guarantee that they'll back off." Lila nods, relief washing over her face. "We'll set terms. Make sure they understand that if anything happens to us, the data will be released automatically." "How?" I ask, skepticism still gnawing at me. "How can we ensure they don't just come after us anyway?" Eli's eyes narrow, the gears in his mind clearly turning. "We'll need a dead man switch," he says. "A digital one. Something that will automatically send the data to multiple parties if we're taken out or if we don't reset it periodically. The plan sounds like something out of a spy movie, but given the danger we're facing, it's the only thing that makes sense. I feel a pang of reluctance, but then I remember the man who followed me. The way he prowled the bar with eyes trained for targets. We're in a game where the rules don't favor the weak. Fine, I agree, my voice rough. Where's this data? Lila takes a step back, guilt flickering over her face. It's stored on a secure server, she admits, her voice cracking slightly. At the resort. My eyes widen. You're kidding me, I say, incredulous. The same place we're being hunted? Eli lets out a frustrated breath. It's why we were brought here, he explains. The data is worth millions, and whoever's after us knows it. The resort's opening event was supposed to provide cover while we secured the server, but everything went wrong. Lila nods, and I see the vulnerability in her expression. I didn't tell you because I wanted to protect you, she says, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. But now you're part of this, and I can't keep you in the dark anymore. My jaw clenches. Anger, betrayal, and worry crash together inside me, but I know that dwelling on it won't change our reality. We're in this together now, whether I like it or not. Eli glances around, his voice lowering. We have to move fast. If we're going to get that data and set up a dead man's switch, we need to be ready for anything. I take a deep breath, trying to process everything. The situation is spiraling faster than I can control, but one thing is clear. Sitting around and waiting for our enemies to make the next move isn't an option. All right, I say, my voice steadying. Let's do this. But if either of you is keeping anything else from me, now's the time to come clean. Lila's lips tremble, but she shakes her head. You know everything now, she whispers. Eli looks equally solemn. No more secrets, he says. It's a fragile alliance, built on half-truths and desperation, but it's all we have. And as we prepare to face whatever hell awaits us, I can only hope we're not too late to save ourselves. We spend the next few minutes hashing out the details of our plan. The tension between us is palpable, a cocktail of mistrust, fear, and urgency that hangs in the air like a storm waiting to break. Every second feels like borrowed time, and I can't shake the feeling that we're dancing on the edge of a knife. The server room is heavily secured, Eli explains, laying out a map of the resort he managed to download onto his tablet. He points to a small, unmarked area near the conference wing. Security will be tight, especially after the break-in. We'll need a distraction to pull this off. I look at the map, my brain running through all the scenarios that could go wrong. What kind of distraction? I ask, my voice flat. It's hard to feel hopeful when everything around me screams danger. Eli's eyes narrow thoughtfully. We could create a false alarm, something that forces the security team to focus their attention elsewhere. Lila steps forward, her voice steadier than before. What about the fire suppression system? She suggests. If we trigger it in one of the main dining areas, it'll cause chaos, and security will have no choice but to respond. I consider the idea, running my fingers through my hair. It's risky, but so is everything about this situation. I glance at Lila, my heart aching with the weight of everything unsaid between us. Even now, I'm torn between the urge to protect her and the anger simmering just beneath the surface. Fine, I say, nodding. Let's do it. Eli doesn't waste any time. He begins setting up the dead man's switch on his laptop, his fingers flying over the keyboard with practiced precision. Once we get the data, he says, I'll upload it here. If anything happens to us, the files will be sent to a network of trusted contacts, and our enemies won't be able to stop it. Lila watches him work, her hands twisting nervously. I can see how much this is costing her. The emotional toll of dragging me into this mess, the fear she's trying to hide. But I can't afford to dwell on that now. We have a job to do, and we can't afford to fail. A few minutes later, Eli looks up, his expression grim but determined. It's ready, he says. We move now. I nod, feeling the weight of the decision settle heavily on my shoulders. We leave the staff area, moving through the resort's shadowy paths. The once idyllic setting has become a labyrinth of danger, every sound making me flinch and every shadow hiding a potential threat. We split up just as planned. Eli heads toward the server room, and Lila and I make our way to the dining area. The resort's main restaurant is packed, guests laughing and sipping cocktails, blissfully unaware of the chaos that's about to erupt. My pulse races as we slip behind a set of decorative palm trees, out of sight. Lila's hand brushes against mine, and I almost pull away, the instinct to keep my distance still strong. But when I see the way her eyes search mine, desperate for some kind of reassurance, I hesitate. Despite everything, despite the lies and the broken trust, I can't shut out the part of me that still wants to protect her. "James," she whispers, her voice cracking, "if we make it out of this, I want to explain everything. I want to make things right." I swallow hard, my emotions a mess of anger, confusion, and that lingering, stupid hope that maybe, just maybe, we can still fix what's broken. "Let's get through this first," I say, my voice rough. "Then we'll see." She nods, tears glistening in her eyes, and I force myself to turn away, focusing on the task at hand. We've come too far to lose our focus now. Lila takes a deep breath, then reaches for the fire suppression panel tucked away in a corner. Her fingers hover over the buttons, and she glances at me one last time before pressing down. An instant later, the alarms blare to life, and the sprinklers overhead burst into action, soaking everything in sight. Chaos erupts. Guests scream, scrambling for cover as water pours from the ceiling, and the security guards stationed nearby rush to contain the commotion. The distraction works, just as we'd hoped. "Go," Lila urges, grabbing my hand and pulling me toward the exit. We race through the resort, slipping into the back corridors where Eli is waiting. He's crouched by a service door, laptop in hand, and he gives us a terse nod when he sees us. "Security's distracted," he says. "Let's move." Together, we enter the server room, the weight of our plan hanging heavy in the air. The next few minutes will decide everything, and there's no turning back. The server room is colder than I expected, the hum of machines and cooling fans filling the space with an almost ominous vibration. Eli leads the way, his fingers flying over the keyboard of his laptop as he sets up the data retrieval process. Rows of blinking lights from the servers illuminate the room in a sterile, blue glow, casting long shadows that feel like ghosts lurking in the corners. Lila and I stand guard at the door, every nerve in my body on high alert. My mind replays the chaos we just left behind. The startled screams, the sound of chairs scraping against the floor, and the rush of water from the fire suppression system. I can only hope our distraction holds long enough. "Hurry up," I whisper, glancing over my shoulder at Eli. "How much longer?" He doesn't look up, his concentration absolute. "Just a few more minutes," he says through gritted teeth. "This server's encrypted up the wazoo, and I need to be careful not to trip any alarms." Lila shifts nervously beside me, her wet hair clinging to her face from the sprinklers. Despite everything, there's a raw vulnerability in her eyes, and I can't help but wonder how we ever got here, how our lives unraveled into this nightmare. But there's no time to dwell on the past, not when the present is breathing down our necks. Suddenly, footsteps echo down the corridor outside. My heart stops, and I motion for Lila to stay silent. The footsteps grow louder, and I can hear voices. Security guards, no doubt, searching for the source of the chaos we caused. I press my back against the door, holding my breath. The voices are getting closer, and the door to the server room feels impossibly thin. One wrong move, and we're screwed. Eli curses under his breath. "Come on," he mutters, typing faster. "Just a little more." The voices stop right outside, and I feel my pulse spike. One of the guards tries the handle, and I brace myself, praying that the door holds. It rattles slightly, but the lock we engaged earlier doesn't budge. "Must be locked," a voice says on the other side. "Move on. We need to secure the main areas first." The footsteps recede, and I exhale, my knees nearly buckling from the tension. Lila's hand finds mine, and for a moment, we cling to each other, united by sheer, desperate hope. But before I can let the relief settle in, Eli lets out a triumphant noise. "Got it," he says, a grin breaking across his face. He pulls a flash drive from the laptop and tucks it into his pocket. The data's ours, and the dead man's switch is active. Relief floods through me, but it's quickly tempered by the knowledge that we're not safe yet. We need to get out of here, I say, helping Eli gather his things. Before they double back, we slip out of the server room, moving as quietly as possible through the service corridors. The resort is still in chaos, guests and staff milling around in confusion, and the fire alarms wail like a warning from the universe itself. We blend into the crowd, trying to look like just another group of panicked vacationers. But as we near the exit, my gut twists. Something feels off. I glance around, and that's when I see him, the man in the suit who was following me earlier. He's standing by one of the emergency exits, talking into a headset. His eyes sweep the room, and I know that if he sees us, it's over. We need to split up, I whisper urgently. If he catches all three of us together, we're done. Eli nods, understanding immediately. Meet at the backup location, he says, and without waiting for a reply, he melts into the crowd, disappearing from sight. Lila clings to my arm, her eyes wide with fear. James, she whispers, her voice trembling. I force myself to stay calm. We'll make it, I say, hoping I sound more confident than I feel. Just follow my lead. We weave through the crowd, doing our best to stay out of sight. My heart races as we get closer to the emergency exit on the other side of the room, away from the man in the suit. But just when I think we've made it, he turns, his eyes locking onto mine. A surge of adrenaline floods my system, and I grab Lila's hand. Run, I say, and we bolt, shoving past guests and staff alike, the man in the suit hot on our heels. The chase is on, and there's no turning back now. We sprint through the chaos, my grip on Lila's hand tight as we dodge panicked guests and staff who scatter in confusion. The man in the suit is right behind us, pushing his way through the crowd with relentless determination. My lungs burn with the effort, but fear drives me forward, my mind running through every escape route I can think of. We burst out of the emergency exit, the warm night air slamming into us as the door swings shut behind. I glance back, catching a glimpse of the man in the suit as he shoves through the exit door, his expression locked in a grim scowl. No time to waste. This way, I gasp, pulling Lila toward the beach. The sand slows our pace, but it also gives us cover. The resort's lights dim as we make our way along the shore, slipping into the shadows where the beach curves around a rocky outcropping. We're partially hidden, but the adrenaline is still pumping hard. Lila struggles to keep up, her breath coming in ragged gasps. James, I can't. Keep running, she manages, her voice cracking. Tears stream down her face, and I can see the exhaustion and fear breaking her down. I stop for a moment, pulling her behind a boulder and trying to catch my breath. My mind races with options, but none of them seem safe. If this man is as dangerous as he appears, he won't stop until he finds us. The sound of approaching footsteps crunches on the sand, and I realize he's closer than I thought. Lila's fingers dig into my arm. James, I'm sorry, she whispers, and the pain in her voice tears at me. Her apology is layered with regret, and for a split second, I want to pull her into my arms and tell her it's going to be okay. But the footsteps are too close, and survival has to come first. Stay low, I whisper, pressing her against the boulder. Don't move until I say. I stand up slowly, my hands raised in a show of surrender. The man in the suit emerges from the shadows, a gun clutched in his hand, his eyes cold and focused. He's younger than I expected, maybe in his early 30s, but the steely look in his gaze tells me he's experienced in this kind of game. Enough running, he says, his voice calm, as if we're having a casual conversation. Hand over the flash drive, and maybe this ends without any more pain. My heart pounds in my chest, but I force myself to stay calm. You're making a mistake, I say, trying to stall for time. We don't have what you think we do. His eyes narrow, and he steps closer. I'm not interested in your lies, he replies, his grip on the gun tightening. The data. Now. From behind the boulder, I see Lila shift slightly, her face pale and terrified. I need to act, but I have no idea how to disarm a trained operative with nothing but desperation and a pocket knife. But then, from somewhere nearby, there's a sudden shout, a voice that makes my heart leap. Hey! Eli's voice echoes across the beach. The man in the suit jerks his head toward the sound, distracted just long enough for me to react. Without thinking, I lunge forward, tackling him to the sand. The gun goes off, the sound deafening, and I pray the bullet didn't hit anyone. We struggle, sand flying everywhere as we grapple for control. The man is strong, his training evident, and he manages to flip me onto my back, pinning me down. His hand swings toward my face, and pain explodes in my jaw as he strikes me. I see stars, but I fight through the days, my hands scrabbling for anything to gain leverage. Then, out of nowhere, Lila appears, clutching a heavy rock. She swings it down with all her strength, hitting the man square in the back. He roars in pain, momentarily stunned, and I use the chance to shove him off me, rolling away. Eli rushes forward, grabbing the man's arm and twisting it until the gun drops into the sand. The man struggles, but Eli is relentless, his movements precise and brutal. Finally, the man collapses, unconscious, and the beach falls silent except for the sound of our heavy breathing. I stagger to my feet, my body aching and my mind reeling. Lila is trembling, the rock still clutched in her hands, her face pale with shock. Eli stands over the unconscious man, his chest heaving, his eyes blazing with adrenaline. Is he dead? Lila whispers, her voice breaking. Eli checks the man's pulse and shakes his head. No, but he won't be getting up anytime soon. He looks at me, his eyes serious. We need to get out of here now. I nod, the weight of everything crashing down on me. We've won this round, but the fight is far from over. Eli's words hit me like a punch to the gut. We need to get out of here now. The reality of our situation crashes over me, and I'm suddenly aware of every ache and bruise from the scuffle. Lila drops the rock she used to defend us, and it hits the sand with a soft thud. Her hands are shaking, and she looks like she's on the verge of breaking down. I move to her side, putting a hand on her shoulder. For all the anger and betrayal still burning inside me, I can't deny the protective instinct that kicks in when I see her like this. We're okay, I say, my voice steady despite everything. We're alive. Her eyes meet mine, and for a moment, the walls between us seem to crumble. Tears spill down her cheeks, but she nods, drawing in a shaky breath. Eli, on the other hand, is already pulling us back to the present. We don't have long, he says, scanning the beach for any signs of backup. That shot will have drawn attention. We need to disappear before more of them show up. He's right. The gunshot was loud, a beacon for whoever is watching. I grit my teeth, nodding. Where do we go? I ask. Eli's jaw tightens. There's an old service tunnel that runs beneath the resort. It leads to a maintenance building near the main road. We can use it to slip away without being seen. He starts moving, and I follow, my hands still clutching Lila's. We jog across the sand, the adrenaline still coursing through my veins. The night air feels heavy, thick with the weight of everything we've been through. When we reach the entrance to the service tunnel, hidden behind a cluster of palm trees, Eli forces open the rusted metal door with a grunt. The tunnel is dark and musty, the smell of damp earth filling my nose. We step inside, and the door clangs shut behind us, plunging us into a world of shadows and echoes. Eli switches on a small flashlight, the beams slicing through the darkness. This way, he whispers, leading us deeper into the tunnel. The walls close in around us, and every sound feels amplified. The scuff of our footsteps, the ragged breaths we're trying to quiet, the distant rumble of the ocean. Lila clings to me, her fear palpable. I don't blame her. The tunnel feels like a tomb, a place where hope struggles to exist. But I force myself to focus on the endgame. We have the data. We've survived the initial attack, and now we just have to make it out. What happens after this? I ask Eli, my voice echoing off the damp walls. We can't keep running forever. He glances back at me, his face illuminated by the flashlight. We use the data as leverage, he says. Send a message to whoever's behind this. Make them understand that if they come after us again, we'll expose everything. And if that doesn't work? Lila asks, her voice small. Eli hesitates, his face grim. Then we go public, he says. Blow the whole thing wide open. It'll be risky, but it's better than getting picked off one by one. The idea of going public sends a chill down my spine. We're dealing with people who operate in shadows, who won't hesitate to erase threats to their empire. But it's a last resort, a desperate play that might be our only hope. We finally emerge from the tunnel into a small clearing behind the maintenance building. The night is still, almost eerily so, as if the world is holding its breath. Eli checks the area, and when he's sure it's clear, he signals for us to follow him toward the road. As we make our way to the main road, headlights suddenly blaze in the distance, and we all freeze. The sound of an engine roars, and my heart leaps into my throat. But instead of coming toward us, the vehicle passes by, oblivious to our presence. Eli lets out a breath, his shoulders relaxing slightly. "We're almost there," he says. "I have a safe house a few miles from here. We'll regroup and figure out our next move." The word safe sounds almost foreign, but I cling to it, to the possibility of finally catching our breath. We step out onto the road, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I feel a flicker of hope. But I know this isn't over. The secrets we're carrying, the enemies we've made, there's still a storm waiting for us. And yet, for the first time, I feel like maybe, just maybe, we have a chance to survive. "Ready?" Eli asks, his eyes meeting mine. I nod, tightening my grip on Lila's hand. "Ready," I say, determination hardening in my chest. We've come too far to give up now. And as we disappear into the night, I know one thing for sure. This fight is only just beginning. We move swiftly along the road, guided by the faint glow of distant streetlights and the adrenaline still pumping through our veins. Eli leads the way, his flashlight cutting through the shadows, while Lila stays close to me, her grip on my hand steady but cold. The night feels heavy, thick with unspoken words and the weight of everything we've been through. The safe house is a small, nondescript cabin tucked away at the edge of a quiet forest. Eli unlocks the door, ushering us inside before double-checking the locks. The cabin is sparsely furnished but functional. A couch, a table, a couple of chairs, and a kitchenette that looks like it hasn't been used in years. It's not much, but it's a sanctuary compared to the chaos we just escaped. Eli disappears into the back room, muttering something about setting up a secure line to his contacts. That leaves Lila and me alone in the main living area, the silence between us suffocating. She finally lets go of my hand, and I feel the loss of her touch like a physical ache. I sink onto the couch, exhaustion crashing over me. My body is bruised and aching, but the real pain comes from the storm of emotions I've been shoving down all night. Anger, betrayal, confusion. They all hit me at once, and I bury my face in my hands, trying to keep it together. "James," Lila whispers, her voice fragile. She stands a few feet away, her arms wrapped around herself like she's trying to hold her broken pieces together. "I know you hate me right now, and I don't blame you." I look up at her, my eyes burning. "Hate you?" I echo, my voice cracking. "I don't even know who you are anymore, Lila. You lied to me. You kept me in the dark, and now I'm in the middle of something I don't understand. A nightmare I never asked for." Tears spill down her cheeks, and she doesn't bother to wipe them away. "You're right," she says, her voice raw. "I did lie. I kept secrets because I thought it was the only way to protect you. But I never wanted any of this to happen." "Protect me?" I shake my head, bitterness lacing my words. "You don't protect someone by lying to them, Lila. You don't protect a marriage by tearing it apart piece by piece." She takes a shaky breath, her eyes brimming with regret. "I know," she whispers, "and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I need you to understand that everything I did, it was because I love you, even if it doesn't look that way now." The room feels unbearably heavy, and I'm torn between wanting to comfort her and wanting to push her away. The woman standing in front of me is both familiar and a stranger, someone I've loved and someone who's broken my trust. My chest tightens, and I force myself to look away. "I don't know how to feel," I admit, my voice cracking. "I want to believe you. I want to trust you again. But right now, all I see are the lies." Lila bites her lip, her shoulders trembling. "Then let me earn it back," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. Let me prove that I'm still the woman you fell in love with. I don't respond. I can't. The pain is too fresh, too raw. But I feel the smallest flicker of something. Hope, maybe, or the fragile remnants of love that refuses to be snuffed out completely. For now, though, it's not enough. Eli returns, breaking the tension between us. I've got us set up, he says, his expression grim. We'll need to lay low until my contacts can arrange safe passage out of here. We're still not out of the woods. I nod, grateful for the distraction. The fight isn't over, but at least we've made it this far. As we settle into the safe house, I know that the road ahead will be long and fraught with danger. But maybe, just maybe, there's still a chance to rebuild, to make sense of the shattered pieces. Morning breaks with a pale, tentative light, filtering through the dusty blinds of the safe house. The warmth of the sun does little to chase away the chill that's settled deep in my bones. I've barely slept, the events of the past day playing on a relentless loop in my mind. Every time I close my eyes, I see the man in the suit, the flash of his gun, and the fear in Lila's eyes. Eli is already awake, standing by the window with a mug of coffee. His face is drawn, his eyes scanning the tree line for any sign of movement. I envy his composure, the way he seems to operate with a calm efficiency even when the world is falling apart. How's it looking? I ask, my voice rough from exhaustion. He glances over at me. Quiet for now, he says, but we shouldn't get comfortable. My contacts are working on getting us out of here, but it could take some time. Until then, we need to stay alert. I nod, rubbing my hands over my face. The thought of being trapped in this cabin, waiting for an attack that could come at any moment, is almost too much to bear. But it's the reality we're facing, and complaining won't change that. Lila emerges from the small bedroom, her hair disheveled and her eyes shadowed with fatigue. She looks at me, and for a moment, there's an awkward, painful silence. I want to say something, anything, to bridge the distance between us, but the words don't come. Instead, I just watch as she pours herself a cup of coffee, her hands trembling slightly. Eli breaks the silence, his voice steady. We need to talk about our next steps, he says, setting his mug down on the windowsill. The data we have is powerful, but it also makes us targets. If we're going to use it as leverage, we need to do it carefully. Lila nods, her expression somber. We can't afford any mistakes, she says. Whoever is behind this is willing to kill to keep their secrets safe. If we misstep, it's over. I feel a surge of frustration. And what exactly is our plan? I demand, unable to keep the bitterness out of my voice. We're just supposed to hide and hope that whoever wants us dead gives up? Eli shakes his head. No, we're going to force their hand. We'll make sure they know that any move against us will result in the data going public. But we need to set up a meeting with the right people, people who have the power to end this. And how do we know who the right people are? I ask, my doubt evident. Eli's eyes harden. That's where my contacts come in. They have access to intelligence networks that can trace this back to the source. But it's going to take time, and until then, we need to stay low. I let out a harsh breath, the weight of our situation pressing down on me. The idea of relying on people I've never met, of putting our lives in the hands of strangers, makes my stomach turn. But we don't have any other options. Lila's voice is soft, but resolute. James, she says, looking at me. I know you don't trust me right now, but I'm asking you to trust me enough to see this through. To trust that we can make it out of this together. Her words cut deep, and I feel my defenses wavering. The anger, the betrayal, it's all still there, but so is the love I thought was gone. I swallow hard, meeting her gaze. I'm here, I say quietly. For now. But when this is over, we need to figure out what's left between us. Tears shimmer in her eyes, but she nods, understanding the fragility of the moment. Thank you, she whispers. Eli clears his throat, drawing our attention. We'll get through this, he says, his voice a rare mix of hope and determination. But we have to stay sharp. I nod, feeling the weight of the fight still ahead of us. The danger hasn't passed, and the road to safety is uncertain. But as we prepare for whatever comes next, I feel a spark of something I haven't felt in a long time. resolve. We've made it this far, and I'll be damned if I let our enemies win. We settle in, waiting for the next move in this twisted game. And though the fear remains, there's a glimmer of hope, a belief that maybe, just maybe, we'll find our way out of the darkness. Have you ever faced a moment where trust was shattered, and you had to fight for your life or your beliefs? How did you overcome it? Share your story in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this tale of betrayal, suspense, and survival, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more gripping stories.